Welcome to Between Two Ellens. We kind of have I'm Ellen Pogmiller, House District 88.
Ellen Hefner, House District 87.
And today's podcast is a little bit different. We thought it would be really neat to hear small stories from as many House Dems as we could.
Yeah, it's the end of session. We're still in session right now. I'm still waiting on some of the leadership to figure out when we will sine die. But basically, a lot of the work that we have done through session is over.
Right.
So we thought we'd do a little recap. We have not had some of the members Between Two Ellen and wanted to give that opportunity. We heard stories from Floor Leader Fugate, Representative, the new one, Clinton from Tulsa. This was her first year because she came in on a special.
Yep. Talked to Representative Rosecrants about recess. Rosecrants
so
recess.
Good. Melodye Blancett
Yes.
from Tulsa, Rep. Blancett from Tulsa, and that was really great. She gave a great explanation and origin story for the bill that. I won't do a spoiler.
Yeah. So this is a fun listen, and maybe we'll do, if we weren't able to get to as many legislators, maybe we'll do another recap over the summer. But anyway, thanks for joining us.
Yes, and message us. Let us know what you want to hear. Let us know what you have questions for, and we hope we hear back from you soon.
Yeah, thank you.
Hey there. I am Representative Melodye Blancett. I'm from Tulsa, House District 78. It goes right up the middle of the city.
Okay, so what is one memorable either highlight or memorable event that happened for you this session?
Well, I did, out of 8 bills that I felt were critically important, obviously. I did have one bill that yesterday made it into law.
Yay!
The governor did not sign it, but by virtue of the fact that he did not veto it, it became law. And what that does is, if you recall, in 2016, we approved 2 state questions. State question 780 and 781. So 780 reduced the level of punishment for low-level drug and property crimes from felony to misdemeanor. But companion to that was state question 781. And that dictated that we take the savings from the lack of incarceration of those people, and we invested that into what is known as a county community safety investment fund, which should have been funding diversion programs. So drug court, mental health court, diversion programs like women in recovery, residents that keep people out of incarceration, but also at the same time give them the skills and the support they need to get on the right path. It was never intended to be an individual standalone state question. The legislature never really funded 781. And so the consequence of that is that we have not really funded those diversion programs like we should have. So at the same time, we've had repeat offenders at the county level in the sheriff's offices who are not receiving support services via these diversion programs in these specialized courts. And what happens when you don't offer those individuals support, they will still reoffend. And so we have done a horrible job of executing what the people's intention was. So my bill actually codifies into state statute what specific data is required to calculate savings.
Oh, good.
Because heretofore, there's been all sorts of arguments about how do you calculate savings. You may or may not remember the former director of corrections, Joe Abaugh.
Oh, yeah.
Well, when we first were starting to calculate the savings for 780 to determine what to put into 781, OMES, Oklahoma Management and Enterprise Services, said, well, this is what our calculation is. And it was like $150 million for like 2 years. And he's like, oh, contraire. I don't think so. You didn't think about this. You didn't think about this. You didn't think about this. So then it was a constant argument for years. And then only recently, within the last couple of years, has that calculation been statutorily assigned to the Legislative Office of Fiscal Transparency. But the critical thing is they didn't have the data they needed to calculate that correctly. And so what this bill does is we worked with Loft, but we also brought in the administrator of the court system, so the court clerks, to determine what data is needed at the court level so that we can in turn get that data and make the appropriate calculation. So that was done this session.
Yay, that's awesome.
So right now, the allotment is just a general allotment, and this will actually be a very...
It will be very specific.
Yeah.
So right now, even though it's in our Constitution, we are constitutionally obligated to invest X number of dollars into that county community safety investment fund. We have not done that from a legislative perspective, and consequently, those diversion programs have not been adequately funded. And you've got people on the other side of the aisle who are in control of the budgetary process that view this as hug-a-thug. Well, the reality is people don't necessarily want to go into crime just because they love doing crime. They need either mental health services, they need drug help, they come from a life of trauma. And what we're doing with these diversion programs is we're investing in increasing the capability of these people to be functioning citizens.
There you go.
Instead of just investing in a jail, one more jail, and one more jail, and one more prison. And so really what this does is help us be more functional as a state. But we've got to hold these legislative folks accountable. But now that we know exactly what the data is that we need to calculate the savings, we can hold their feet to the fire.
That's very good. That's very good.
Yeah.
So that's my good news.
It is good news. So that was one of the findings of Loft, that because sometimes they give recommendations. Was this something that they had?
No. So I happened to be listening to an interim study on State Question 780 and 781 that Representative Danny Williams and Nicole Miller did. And they were talking about this issue, and I was like, well, so where are the calculations this year? I'm just curious where it was. And I reached out to the executive director of Loft and said, where's the calculation for this year? Because they're supposed to get it to us by July 31st of every year. Well, it was past July the 31st when this legislative interim study was happening. And she said, well, we don't have the data. We're still working on it. I'll get it to you as soon as I can. Well, about 3-4 weeks later, I hadn't heard anything, so I reached back out to her and I said, where are we on this data? Why don't we have the 781 data? And then she explained what the problem was.
Okay.
And I said, you have got to be kidding me. So they were relying on the Oklahoma Policy Institute data, which only has, here's the thing, you guys, it only has data from 13 counties.
Oh my goodness.
13 counties, because they couldn't get it from any other counties.
Wow.
And so they were having to extrapolate that data from 13 counties out to the population as a whole. Well, it's a guess.
Yeah.
And so with what confidence can they go back to the budget, leaders and say, this is what we are statutorily required to invest? They are guessing.
Yeah.
And so this eliminates the guesswork.
Nice.
Now they can go back and they say, here's the data. So we brought in the administrator of the courts, which dictates what the court clerks put into the court system data.
So now it's streamlined.
Yes, and So, and the administrator of the courts was like, okay, we didn't know you needed this information. Here's what we can do. We're in the process of upgrading our system. We'll add this to our regular monthly training for court clerks. So I had Regina, who's the executive director of Law here, the administrator of the courts here, Representative Dave Harden, who was the committee chairman over here. I'm like, we all need to be on the same page. So we were like, can you do this? Can you do this? Can you do this? Everybody said, yes, we can do it. It was like the angels were singing, and we just got it done. And then what this does is it puts into statute. So then when we are gone, 2, 3 years, 5 years from now,
It'll still be funded
it will
correctly.
still be in the statute.
Still be funded correctly. Very good.
Well, thank you
that's
so
good.
much for being here,
Thanks.
Representative Blancett, to tell us that.
Absolutely.
And I love to hear the origin story because so many times we hear legislators go, well, I have an idea, but we know that we have to work to fill those holes and
Right.
take down barriers. So
And
we find
ask
them.
questions.
Ask questions.
Ask questions, be involved, go to the committee meetings.
Work together.
Work together.
Yeah, work
Bring together like what happened with the administrator of the courts. You know, it could very well have been that she didn't want to cooperate, and oftentimes we see that. But in this circumstance, it just worked. She said, yes, we'd be happy to do that. It's not a big lift on our part. It will not require additional fiscal resources. Loft, same thing. Hardin said now that he understood, so brought him into the framework, and it just all worked. So this is what we've got to do when we as Democrats don't have a lot of power. These are the things we can do and work behind the scenes.
Good tools. Thank you so much
Thank
for being
you.
here.
Thank you.
Well, hello. I'm Trish Ranson,
Hi,
state
Trish.
representative for House District 34 in the heart of Stillwater. Go Votes. So you wanted me to tell you something about this session. So
Yes.
This session has been, I think, the craziest session that I have yet to experience, and this is my 8th session.
Wow.
A lot of miscommunication, a lot of working where there's some insider baseball going on, which most of us are not privileged to. But I think the biggest thing for this session has been getting my bill passed.
Yeah.
Okay.
So,
Tell us a little bit about your bill.
So House Bill 1979 creates an early childhood task force that looks at the governance of all programs for birth through 5. And so that's health, that's education, and that's care. And so, child care has made the news recently, especially with cuts from the federal level. We also know that we are very high in the maternal and infant mortality rate. And as far as school readiness, we're also looking at, okay, well, are our 3rd graders going to be able to pass the reading test? So all of these issues are issues that we're hearing in the news lately. So it's interesting. I've been working on this bill for 3 years, and it really wasn't getting traction. People weren't understanding what it does and what the vision of it. And so I had an interim study last session, or last interim, and just try to get awareness of what we're talking about. We've got all these issues. How do we fix the issues before they're issues? And so that kind of, since we were talking about school readiness, since we were talking about care and health, it just kind of blossomed. So it passed. And so now we are in law, and which is fabulous. I'm just really excited. And I took all day yesterday when it was signed to celebrate.
Aww.
And just really to kind of, take that moment and really enjoy it. Now I'm already looking forward to, okay, who's going to be on this task?
That's what I was going to ask. Yeah. Did you? How much did you define the makeup of the task force?
Yes, it's very much defined, but it's appointed by all different people.
Okay.
So I'm going to have a meeting with Speaker Hilbert too, because I definitely want to be the representative on this task force. And then, so how do I kind of make sure that it's all ready to go and we get the people appointed that need to be appointed and get that ready for it to start in November.
Very nice. Well, congratulations.
Yeah, I told Representative Ranson, but yesterday I was at an event that was focusing on like education and what we could be doing, and I happened to be at a early childhood table, and they represented Sunbeam, Head Start, Educare, and all of them were talking about how important this task force was.
So great.
And the work that they are hoping to do in the future for this state.
So the fact that the governor signed.
He signed it.
Bill.
Put his name on it.
Amen.
That's so great. Well, congratulations.
Thank you.
So even though it was one of the most different sessions,
Yes.
it turned out with a really happy ending.
Agreed.
There you go.
Hello, everybody. I'm State Representative Jacob Rosecrants. I've been doing this since 2017. I represent down in District 46 down in Norman, Oklahoma.
Okay, so tell us, what was the one story you want to remember from this session?
Good, bad, or something that you are just so excited about.
Okay, well, I mean, if you want to talk about recess, that's kind of where I'm at on everything. In case people didn't know, right when I first got here in 2017, my first bill idea, I ran up to Ivy Riggs at OEA, and I was like, Ivy, we don't have recess locked in state statute. It's a problem. And I'm a middle school teacher, so we didn't get that part covered, but still, it was something I noticed. I went to a play-based Catholic school when I was younger. When I became a teacher, I couldn't believe how much we were not focused on physical activity and in recess. So 2017, flash forward to 2026, my name may have not been on the bill itself, but if people want to talk about that, we can, and you can definitely ask me questions about that. But the version that I first put forward to lock in recess in state statute was a 40 minutes all day pre-K to 5th grade. And my original one went to middle school. I could not get middle school in any of these versions. But that one couldn't even get a bill hearing. It couldn't even get a committee hearing. Wow. And so I compromised, changed it to 30 minutes, made it like a minimum floor. That one got over to the Senate, and a couple of those got over to the Senate. The most recent version was House Bill 1493. Bipartisan support, passed out of the House last year, was sitting over there. But I don't know if it's because of my hard work or whatever. We can talk about how. I know how. But Republicans took an interest, a big interest, to the point, and people may not know this, but if they want to copy what I've done, I have absolutely no problem with that, because I think that we can just pass it. I don't care if my name's on it or not. And so that's what happened. Senate Bill 1481, I believe. It was Senator Seyfried's and Chad Caldwell, of all people.
Of all people.
I've had to team up with on this thing. They passed it. I couldn't believe it. The governor signed it. So that's a huge deal.
And tell us what that bill will do now.
Okay, so what it does, it basically does what my original did. It's going to pre-K to 5th grade. That's going to be 40 minutes of recess. Recommendation of splitting it up into 20-minute increments, because that's a CDC recommendation. Locals can decide on the timing. That's always been a thing. I've dealt with a lot of pushback on this over the years, how we're going to fit it in. And the way I said it was like, well, the districts will decide that. We're not talking about a 40-minute block. You can do whatever you want to do to fit it in the calendar, to fit in your schedules. And that has helped a little bit, although with some of the other bills passing this year with very prescriptive things, I understand all the pushback. I do. I went on the news, KSCO, and talked about it. I listened to teachers. I was a teacher myself. But if you want to talk about stats, statistics, data, all that, I've been working on this for almost 10 years.
Yeah.
You understand I'm a wealth of knowledge. 40%, I think, has been the time that's been decreased, or 40% of schools in America have decreased or gotten rid of of recess. And in Oklahoma, it's the same way. As soon as I started doing this, we had 20 minutes in statute recommended, not required. And so most schools did that. A lot had 30 minutes. Some had 15, some had 0.
Oh my God.
They were doing PE instead of recess. So obviously this was a big piece that I've been pushing for a while. That's what it does. Also, the big piece that was in my original bill that is getting major pushback now is a prohibition of taking away recess as a punishment.
Yes.
I'm a local control guy. I'm a teacher, but I never took recess away from my kids. I don't love bands. I don't love bands. I don't love book bands. I don't love gender affirming care bands. I don't love bands. But this piece, it had so much pushback in my versions. I never put it in any of my other ones. But I'm happy it passed.
Yeah.
I'm happy it passed.
So tell me a little bit. I know your work. What kind of how do you think you teed this up to Republicans?
So I figured, listen, people don't know. There's a couple different groups of Republicans. Some of the more pro business, people in charge really weren't for this because they were like, there's this idea of playing and getting outside and having these brain breaks are not good for academic outcomes. Absolutely untrue.
Yes,
absolutely untrue. Data, I have mountains of data I can show on that. And then randomly, the very far right were kind of agreeing with me because it was like this private school mindset of like Montessori, right?
Yeah.
So I had some weird bedfellows throughout the years on some of these things, and well, it turns out my original language showed up in the bill that went all the way by pretty far right people. You know, I don't think Steve Reed's the most far right, but they're definitely.
But see, the good thing about that is it's about the policy and what it does, and how you said something that was just so humbling as a leader is to say, it might not have my name on it, but they went back to where all you were educating them.
That's right.
And so I think that that's really important because up here, you know, if you have your name on something or it's my bill, it's for Oklahomans, and you did it, and that right there, I think, is such an awesome work ethic that Democrats have, but you did especially with this. So bravo to you.
Well, I thank you for that. I purposely didn't put my name on it even as co-author on this one because I didn't want anything tripping it up. And that's probably a conspiracy theory on mine. You know, I don't think co-authors, they don't really look, but I was thinking of the governor. I talked to Chad. He was like, my first worries with both the authors were, are you really going to push this, or are you just authoring it? I couldn't really get much conversation from the Senate side, so I talked to Chad once he became the author, and he goes, I don't take things that I don't push. And I was like, okay, what do you think? I go, okay. Exactly. I go, okay, what do you need me to do? He goes, nothing. And I was like, okay. Because remember, he became, honestly, I don't think this thing passes if he's not the chair of his own committee, because he put it right through there, went through A and B, even though there's no cost on it, and boom, went through and got on the floor, and there you go.
I think it's important to tell probably one of my favorite moments on the floor was this bill passing.
Yeah, you tell a story.
And, you know, full shout out to Representative Michelle McCain, one of our colleagues, who recognized that we had a room full of fourth graders in that room. And they asked for that bill to be pushed up, to be heard on the floor while they were in that room. And so
good.
When we were able to talk about adding recess, we got to log questions of like, you know, what's your favorite PE? What grades will this impact? And when the fourth graders in that room learned that they were going to get more recess, it was just like, I've never had a bill feel like this is such a great idea. I bet that was special too.
It was huge. It was Michelle's idea. You're right.
Yeah.
She was like, oh my gosh, they're up there. And I was like, well, it can't be heard until the afternoon. So it was funny. I don't have Chad's text. I don't just, we're on the opposite side of everything. So it's not like I was just like, hey, Chad, what are you doing? He sent me, he had kind of heard what was going on. I can't remember the exact timing, but he sent me one of those pink slips, which is a representative wanting to talk to another representative.
Oh,
and I actually still have that pink slip because he was like, hey, as long as you guys don't fight it, I'm going to push this bill up. It's not eligible to be heard until. And I was like, do it. I'll talk to my caucus. They're going to be fine, man. And so give it up to Michelle for even doing that. I then raced upstairs because they were on a tour and they weren't going to stay there all that long.
Okay.
And so I had to run, and it was almost lunch too. Like, and Chad was not going to be there that afternoon. So a lot of moving parts.
Yeah.
So I ran and I was like, don't go. Stay. Talked to the teachers out of breath because, well, not the picture of health, but I made it up there and they all sat down and the bill wasn't up yet. So we had to kind of like tell them what was going on and told the teachers, and they were like, oh, recess bill? Are you kidding me? I was like, yeah, it's coming. So it was great. It was great to see that. It was totally not planned whatsoever, except it was Michelle's idea to be like, Jacob, you need to do this.
Right.
And so give it up to, and it's always great to have the team effort. You know, I think everybody talks about, you know, my bills, my this and the other. No. Everything's everybody's.
Yeah.
But also having to say that, you know, since we are 17, we need Republicans to vote on our bills and to support the language that we know is good for Oklahomans. So take a win on that for sure.
Now, just one little piece I want to add in there.
Yeah.
It's not all just me, because I found out, I poked around and go, why are these things popular? There was two versions, both of my language. One, the more watered down 30-minute one with no prohibition of taking my recess, that was what my bill did in the Senate. They killed that.
Mm-hmm.
And then my Senate author came to me and she was like, hey, I'm going to take that and I'm going to give it to Dick Lowe. And I was like, I don't care, that's fine. I want one of these versions to pass. Obviously, I wanted my strongest version to go all the way. And so then I was like, what is going on? Why are these people? It can't just be me. part of it is. I think with Senator Stanley and Senator Representative Lowe, it was me. The other two, I had heard a rumor right after I passed my House version over to the Senate last year from some lobbyists that said that Robert F. Kennedy Jr. was taking an interest in my bill because it's part of the MAHA.
Oh my
activity. I swear to you, I was like, do you think he would retweet it? And they were like, we think he probably is going to. Well, that caught on. And then all of a sudden you see anybody who's in an election wanting to run these recess bills, especially for far right, closed primaries.
Yeah.
I think that's what ended up happening. No one really, I was not able to talk to Senator Steve Freed or anything. And Chad was like, no, I'm just running because it's a good bill, which maybe not.
Listen to you. The administration's listening to
objective Rosecrants.
I love that. However it happened.
It was my idea before it was Robert F. Kennedy.
There you go.
I promise you that. But we also now have one of the strongest recess requirement bills in the United States of America. Illinois is number one. I did a lot of research. I based ours off of Illinois. I didn't really mention that because, blue state. Also, my hard work on this did get a bill that was, I talked to the Democratic leadership at the House and the Senate in California, and they passed a version of this too after talking to me. So, hey, I'm Recess Rosecrants.
Yeah.
That's great.
Well, thank you so much for joining us.
Recess Rosecrants. Double R.
Oh my gosh.
Hide the beer.
Outtakes.
Okay.
Outtakes,
Wait,
yeah.
that's an outtake?
Yeah.
Hide the beer. You stand it up in the middle of things, it winds up in there. So I'm Andy Fugate. I am the elected representative for Del City and the surrounding community. That's House District 94. I also serve with my lovely colleagues here as the floor leader for the House Democrats. I'm now in my 8th session here at the Capitol,
Wow.
which seems bizarre to me.
Crazy.
And I was asked today to talk about something from the session that I was excited about. In this session, we passed Senate Bill 504, which is a prohibition on childhood marriage in the state of Oklahoma.
Mm-hmm.
Before the law changed, a person 16, 17 years old could get permission from their parents to get married, and there was no age limit lower than that. So somebody who conceivably was 5 years old with the permission of a judge could get married. Obviously, 5-year-olds aren't getting married, but we do have 11-year-olds, 12-year-olds, 13-year-olds who are getting married. And that was really meaningful to me. It was not the bill that I proposed, but this is the third time around when we've had this legislation. I've tried twice myself, and a colleague of mine, Nicole Miller, colleague of ours, finally got the football across the goal line. It is a very important change, especially for human trafficking in this state, for young girls who are in abusive situations, where parents should be prosecuting men instead of marrying their children off to them. And so I'm excited to finally see this happen.
And it was, what was unique about this bill was it was controversial, not in the Senate, but for some reason, when it came over to the House, it was extremely polarizing. So if you want to just talk a little bit about, kind of what happened that day on the floor.
Yeah, that was an interesting debate. I sat and listened, just trying to understand. I understand my position on this, but just hearing the other side, and I think you could characterize it maybe 3 ways. There are those who believe on religious grounds that it's more important for a girl to get married than to have an abortion. There are those who espouse parental choice. And then the third grouping is just love, but if you just think through those things, marriage is a contract. It is not something, it's not a religious ceremony.
They still could do a religious ceremony without having the contract.
Correct.
Okay.
Yep. If you want your church, in the eyes of the church, to marry your children, fine. You can do that. But in the eyes of the law, they are still independent. So for contracting reasons, you're still their parent. You have the right to take them out of those situations if they become abusive.
Yeah.
I'll share this with your audience. So I had a lawyer reach out to me after the passage of this, and he said, "Oh my God, I'm so glad you guys finally took care of that." We had a really horrific abuse situation in the late 80s, early 90s, right here in Oklahoma, where we had several attorneys, very high-powered individuals, Carol Gregg, Grover Miskovsky, Bruce Brill, who all went to prison for preying on girls as young as 9 years old.
Oh my gosh.
They were trading favors, sexual interactions with these girls to help out the families.
Oh,
And
goodness.
And in the case of one girl, she had been continuously raped from the time she was 9 years old until 14 years old. She turns up pregnant at 14. And the attorney who was involved in this found a 24-year-old to marry her so that they could hide the abuse that was going on. Because if she was unmarried, she had the baby, then they would have done a paternity check.
Absolutely disgusting and horrific.
So she then spent a decade of her own life in a very abusive situation. He came in at the latter end of that to serve as her divorce attorney, where she finally had figured out how to get out of the abuse that she was in. This happens in Oklahoma.
Still,
Yeah.
it's not a few.
Yeah.
It's not a few. That same idea about human trafficking, and that those people that voted against this probably are one of the first to say against human trafficking, but that's what this is. And the excuse that, not excuse, but a couple of those debates talked about 17-year-olds, hey, let's wait. You know, what's wrong with waiting? You know, you're still going to be in love. You want that contract so bad, it'll be there. Yeah. And then the other thing that I thought that was just so glaring is, you know, people were really upset that this was moving on. You could hear it in their debates that this was being heard again. And I don't know where that comes from, but to say that if someone gets pregnant and they have to get married is almost like, we should put sex ed back in school.
Yes.
I mean, if that's what it shows, that a lot of them talked about sex before marriage, and there's a baby, they should be married. And I was like, then we need to put sex ed back in school.
Yeah, you're the ones who are saying abstinence is the only way.
Yeah.
And now you're excusing the fact that these children have not been abstinent.
Yes, it really brought a lot of things that we still have to work on in the state, but goodness, thank goodness.
It's obstinence in place of abstinence.
There you go.
Absolutely.
That's right.
Yeah.
Oh gosh, I'm so glad that you brought that up, because that was a highlight.
Oh, and it barely passed. It was
One vote.
So, but women on our side of the aisle really broke out in claps, because
I'll say on the other side of the aisle too, because there were several women that they were, when the vote was held open, I saw several Republican women talking around to change votes.
Yep.
And so they were working really hard, because here again, I was happy Nicole Miller ran it. She is a woman, and sometimes it's hard to get bills through if you're a woman about stuff like this, and she did it. So I'm very, very proud of her work on this, and proud of all the debate and all the stuff that you've done the years before. So.
Yes, thank you so much, Rep. Fugate.
But I give 100% credit to Rep. Miller for finding a way to navigate and get this done.
Yep.
I don't need to be here taking credit for it. I'm just here to applaud and grateful that it happened.
Thank you. Thank you so much
for being here.
All right. Well, thanks for having me,
Yes.
Ellen and Ellen. Ellen squared. My name is Amanda Clinton. I am the House District 71 rep out of Tulsa, and this is my freshman session. I came in a special, so I had sort of an abbreviated term. I served 1 year, the remaining portion of previous Representative Amanda Swope's term, and luckily did not draw an opponent this next time. So you guys are stuck with me for the next 2 years. So,
Yay!
yeah.
Well, that's great.
Yeah.
That's great.
So tell us, maybe one memorable or a story from this session.
A story from this session. So I think the most memorable story was when I hurt myself at the Made in Oklahoma reception. Were you guys there?
I was not there.
I was not there, but I
But you
heard about it.
Yeah. So, as you all know, and maybe folks at home know, there are different receptions in the evenings that we attend.
A lot.
Yeah. And it's always generally pretty helpful, whatever organization's hosting it. So we get to know a little bit about what they're doing. And this was the Made in Oklahoma reception. I was really excited to go.
There were 3 that night, though, I just want to say.
There were. And I think
It was very busy that night.
I think I was going to go to another one before I injured myself.
Oh my gosh.
So I go to the Made in Oklahoma reception, which I was really excited about. I love
Such a good one.
Such a good organization.
Yes.
So I was really excited to sample everything there. And I'm walking into this venue, and there are steps, and it's beautiful, and it opens up into this big area where everyone's standing and sampling food and drinks and all that. And I had my heels on, and usually in the Capitol I'll wear like little flat shoes to run around. But then when I go to the floor, when my feet are visible, I try to wear my cute shoes.
Yeah.
So I'm going down these stairs, and I just missed like the second to last one or last step, and I fell, and I'm pretty klutzy anyway. I mean, this is not the first time I've fallen downstairs.
You know how to
or
land.
upstairs, or off of a scooter or anything.
Yeah.
So I always land on the same leg
Oh
every
my
time.
gosh.
It's my left leg,
wow.
and so I fell and tried to catch myself. I guess on the stairs that were glass. It was glass below the handrail, and I face planted too into the
gosh.
glass. I thought my teeth like went through my lip. I
I'm
kind
not
of
laughing. I'm just.
Man, and it was, the inside, and I remember when I got up, I was like, did I bust my lip? I was kind of disoriented because my face and head hit that glass. And I mean, it really hurt. And I was like kind of, like stars kind of spinning like a cartoon character there for a little bit. But I will say, when I looked up, I think what was really sweet was when I looked up, there were at least 3 of our male colleagues there that just came running to help me up right away.
Nice.
It was Eddie Dempsey from Hojatown, such a gentleman, and Danny Sterling, and Jim Olson.
Oh, wow. What a collective group of people.
And from, Sequoia County.
Yeah.
And, Bob Ed Culver came over later, and so did David Harden. And so it was just crazy because, I think I was only like a month in at that time. And so just to see our colleagues that came quickly to my aid and offered me a hand up, I think that is probably the most memorable part of the session. And then they kept checking on me for the next few days.
That's nice.
Because honestly, my leg is still bruised.
Oh my.
It's finally about to, I think, completely heal. But, I had a little bit of a bruise here, and like my neck hurt, my shoulder hurt, my leg hurt. But I think my leg is almost healed now.
Oh my gosh.
But anyway, that's the most memorable part to me, just because I was pretty new, and I had 3 or 4, 5 colleagues run over and just try to help me up and help me out and make sure I was okay. And Danny Sterling knows that I grew up on a dairy farm and then later beef, but he knows I'm a farm girl, and he said, I would be worried about somebody else, but you're an old dairy girl. You'll just walk it off.
Oh.
So I thought that was
Did you go
sweet.
home after that, or did you?
Man, I honestly hung out for a minute just to get my wits about me. I went to the bathroom to try to gather myself. And OSU filled out an incident report
my gosh.
In case I needed medical attention or something happened. But and then I went home, and then a tornado hit that night. And on the way home, I stopped at Walgreens to get medical supplies and had to take cover in the Walgreens when there was that tornado that was hovering over the city that night. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. What a day.
Well, that is memorable.
Well, and I will say what's unique about you starting as in our second year of the 60th legislature is, your introduction to session is so unique. As my class, we're technically the same class, but I'm a year ahead of you. And we had kind of an orientation where you at least kind of get to know all of the other freshman legislators. So, for you've done a great job of trying to meet all these people in the middle of session and how, just talk a little bit about that.
I don't think it's so much of trying to meet them. You just inevitably meet these folks as you serve on the same committees, or they're presenting bills to you, or you're trying to get your bills heard or get, put votes for your bills. So, it's been great. Like I mentioned, I have a rural background, so I have a lot in common with our colleagues from rural Oklahoma. And but yet, I represent probably one of the most densely populated parts of Tulsa.
Yeah.
So it's been a unique experience, and just being able to get to know folks and find common ground, which is really not as difficult as some people might think it is.
Well, that's the good part of, that you did fall, thankfully, OSU, took care of you, but the people that we serve with really are great. And you mentioned all those that are on the other side of the aisle, and building those relationships is important because we can't do it without their votes or their help. And so that they reached out, it's kind of a nice story about how we do work together and they're have good relationships with them,
Yeah,
pretty much.
Yeah. I mean, Jim Olson and I sat next to each other in Criminal Judiciary Committee, and, most of the time did not vote the same way. And, most of the gentlemen I mentioned, probably, wouldn't line up with on a lot of the more controversial things, of course. But, great people, great folks.
Great people, great folks.
Really bummed that Eddie Dempsey's leaving us.
Yeah,
I
he's
really wanted to serve longer with him.
Yeah.
Such a great guy and such a gentleman, and just, really bummed that he's leaving. So, yeah.
He's a great guy.
But yeah, just meeting everybody has truly been great. I can't say there's one person in this chamber that I dislike.
Awesome.
Very good.
Well, thank you for being
That's
with us
it.
today. That's it.
Good.